and he's a married man. Married to Dr. Estela Mugasha, and they've been happily married for 17 years. And the fruit of their marriage is 3 daughters, 3 beautiful daughters, and a handsome son. And Ndugu Collin and Dada Estela both serve with All Saints Chapel, Lueza. And some of you, as you may know, Collin is a digital transformation specialist working in the government of Uganda as the director of e-government services. And Ndugu Collin is also a board member of Finca Uganda, Church of Uganda, Family TV, and AEE Holdings. He will tell us which team he supports if there is time. But Ndugu Collin, for the time I've known him, which is a long time, he loves the Lord Jesus Christ, and I believe we all love the Lord Jesus Christ. So please welcome with me our dear brother, Mr. Collin Mugasha Babirukamu. Ndugu Collin, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reverend Alan, my dear friend. Thank you. Just to do a quick sound check and video check. You can hear me well, and you can see the shared slides, right?
Exactly. We can hear, see you, and see the slides. Excellent.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Alan. Really, really appreciate the invitation. I'm extremely honored to have this moment to just share with the men on this call. I'm sure there might be some ladies also patched in. We are one and the same, and it's a blessing to be able to speak, just from a husband's perspective about marriage in a contemporary world. And I picked this photo for a particular reason. If you look carefully at this photo, you probably see a man who is introspecting and thinking hard about possibly the present and the future. And his wife looks happy. His wife looks happy. The kids are having possibly a great time, and they're taking a walk into the future. And that really speaks to our contemporary world in many ways. We are interracial. Things have changed a lot. What we thought was traditional before has been disrupted. And therefore, we live in very dynamic times. And I believe marriage has not changed, but the world we live in has changed. And therefore, we talk about marriage in a contemporary world rather than a contemporary marriage. But you might see my slides sort of keep using the word contemporary marriage, but it seems it speaks about a marriage in a contemporary world. So marriage hasn't really changed. And the ethos and the fundamentals and principles of marriage haven't really fundamentally changed. But the world that we live in has changed. And that requires us to talk a bit more. I'll remove my video for us to just optimize and focus on the slides. So let me just get to it. But thank you once again, Reverend Alan, Dr. John and the team behind the online church. Thank you so much. It's a blessing just to be able to talk to men. And I think we need a kind of men's conference, a retreat. I don't think you can tackle such a topic in 40 minutes or 30 minutes. I think it would be great for the online church to take us away somewhere and we hybrid on a physical hangout with men and just talk about our issues. Obviously, I must set out from the beginning. I am not a perfect husband. It must be on record. I am not an expert on marriage, but I've been married for 17 years, and I am honored to just share, my perspective on this topic as we go along. So please footnote that I'm a student of marriage like many of you, and I look forward to learning and interacting with you. So please use your chat box as much as you can. Please chat and share some of the things that are coming to mind as we go along. But this husband definitely looks like he is clearly introspecting right now and thinking really hard about life. So this is just to go quickly on, very quickly, I rarely share my kids' slides and photos on social media these days, but I thought it was important just to say, like Alan says, I've been blessed with 17 years of marriage to Dr. Estella, and we've got Abigail, the 16-year-old, who's my height, as you can see, and then the little man, who's 5 years old, and then Nisi and Shama at the very end. And those are our babies, and we really bless the Lord. Anybody who's been married for what, a year, should really thank God. If you've been married for 10 years, hallelujah. Because I think in the contemporary world we live in right now, nothing is given. Nothing can be taken for granted. So to the men out here who have been holding in, just hold on and hang in. And we'll talk about this as we go about our changing world. Let me just delve into the topic because I really want to keep it fairly short and easy and simple so that we can actually have more interaction. I really enjoy the interactions I've had whenever we're on online TV. So I'll try to make sure that I can compress my discussion to allow us to have that time. But let's look at this quickly. Marriage in the contemporary world. I don't know what you guys think, and please share in the chat box things I left out. What is our world right now? What is our world made up of? Feel free to just chat. And ladies, also feel free, like Reverend Alan says, to send in your chats. But generally, marriage, social media. I mean, how can I speak about marriage in a contemporary world without talking about the fact that we live in a world where social media literally runs most of our time? We are on social media more than we talk to our spouses. We are on social media more than we talk to our children. We spend a couple of hours on social media. I'm trying to remember the hours that they spoke on the average, but we spend about 2 to 6 hours. I'll get the actual number that I researched on social media. So there we are in a changing world. Economic stress. Gentlemen, the money for the Kameza, I don't know how that feels and how that's going for you, but it can be stressful in these days to be able to take care of our families. People can call it financial distress, economic stress. There's now a word that says the economics of marriage, and it's really about how you go about money. Money matters, and we'll talk about that a bit more. What about emancipation, gentlemen? Let's face it, our wives and the women are emancipated right now. They're empowered. It's no longer the same. Traditional wives or traditional marriages had women who were literally in the home waiting for the husband to come home and feed and provide. Our wives, many of them are emancipated. And it's a good thing in many ways, but that's the world that we live in right now. What about feminism? We're equal rights. What about LGBT? Right now in Parliament, I don't think they have concluded the discussion, but that's ongoing right now. It's been a trending topic, maybe for the last 1 month and a half, at least, heavily trending, but it's been on for many years. And the key thing for me to note here is that I think you saw I think I was talking to somebody who said that there's even a plus at the end. That plus means that there are more distortions and there are more things yet to come, from lay to, lesbian to gay to bestiality to, just imagine all the letters in there with a plus. Plus means that there's more to come. Please don't close the chapter yet. That's the world that we're living in right now. What about liberalization? Everything goes right now. Nothing is cast in stone. Everything goes, and everything is open, to discussion. What about the pandemics? Pandemics are also an effect. I think I was watching a clip that says while we finished the last pandemic, there's a looming pandemic in 2025. Some of the models and Bill Gates and other people have begun to model a pandemic that's coming up, in about 2 years to come, 2 years from now. So they are ongoing pandemics. These impact everything from our health. They impact our finances. They definitely impacted marriages in the last 3 years. of the pandemic. What about the whole digital space that we're in? Hallelujah for digital, because I'm a digital person and I love the tools that come with digital, but it's also come with a lot of risks that we shall be talking about ahead. And then what about the exposure? I mean, men and women now are more exposed than ever before. They have traveled, they have listened to different cultures, and therefore there's heavy exposure now. And that's the marriage that we're in today. It's a contemporary world. The world has changed and shifted. Our wives are also very exposed, and so are we. And we're open to liberalization and testing different things. And that has come with many challenges, as you will see, from my perspective. So again, back to my first slide for those who came in later. This man here looks like he's introspecting and wondering about the future. And he has this happy wife. And I usually hear women speak and say this to me. I think it's for their advantage. They say that happy wife, happy life. If you have a happy wife, you have a happy life. So this man may look a little introspecting and a little thoughtful, but his wife is happy. And in many ways, you have solved 80% of your marriage problems if your wife is happy. And we'll talk about that along the way. It may sound a bit selfish, but it works that way. So happy wife and happy life. Let me just go to some very open statements before I delve into maybe a few more slides, because I really want us to have a discussion. And please keep chatting. Please keep chatting on this. So the first thing I want to say is that whenever we say contemporary, and obviously we've got lots of experts here, contemporary really could almost be a synonym. It's actually a synonym of modern, and therefore contemporary really means new and the future to come. While traditional is the setting that we all knew. We watched our parents, we watched our grandparents, go about marriage. And I've only been married for 17 years, so I'm no expert at all. But I think it's just happy to meet with men online and just talk about this this wonderful thing called marriage. Is it possible to have a happy marriage? My answer is yes. Are there challenges in marriages? My answer is still yes. Can we overcome them as men? Can we adapt? Can we fit into this contemporary marriage and the world it is? And my answer is yes. A quick statement here says that in traditional marriages, spouses were trapped in predefined roles, which they could never leave. Like the role of a married woman was to be a homemaker. So homemaker is a key word here. All of us wanted to marry homemakers. And I want to say right now, I want to testify clearly without any remorse that my wife is actually a homemaker. And that was one of the greatest things that I saw in my wife. And I went visiting her home and I watched her mother. Her mother is a great homemaker. And while watching her, I began to almost get a sense of what my wife would be. And I wanted a homemaker. I wanted a woman who's in control of the home, who understood what to do with the home, to make the house. I was going to give her my house, and she was going to make our home. So as a bachelor, I was coming with a little house, and she was going to make it a beautiful home. And thank God that she's a homemaker. But that's what we thought as traditional marriage. And it was meant to also suppress the ambitions that the wives had. Whereas in modern marriages, spouses have freedom or individual preferences. So it's actually true that people now have individual preferences. Men and women have their own preferences, and you must respect it. It's a liberal, contemporary world that we live in right now. Another word that I want to say is that our concept of marriage today is different from what it was years ago. So the rise of feminism, and we must speak of this very sensitively, because the wives now are educated. They are standing up. They are wearing trousers and saying we are part of this discussion right now. And we must respect that. Things have changed. And there's also a sexual revolution in the 1960s, which redefined the gender roles in marriage. So basically, women entered the workforce in significant numbers. So our wives are actually in the workforce, many of them. And it changed the economic realities of marriage. In many marriages these days, the wives are providing. The wives are the providers. They pay the bills. They cover the bills. The definition of marriage was re-examined when divorce became socially acceptable. So things have changed and gay rights were established as women claimed, listen to this, women have now claimed decision-making rights. They have a right to sit on the table and make decisions. And we're not here to actually hold them down. We're just saying that the world has changed. And they have rights in their marriage, and they know their rights, by the way. And men took on, listen to this, some of the responsibilities of child rearing. I was about to say childbearing, but it's child rearing. So women are now, husbands are now rearing children at home. Modern marriages became, egalitarian, which is really, the principles of equality. Marriages now are presenting an equal platform where men and women literally are having the same say on the table. And we can't stop this movement. We cannot hold them down. We can't seem to be working towards holding our wives down. No, we must be able to adapt to this changing environment and see how best keep our place. I don't think men have lost their place, or should they lose their place as the heads of the home, as the providers, as the protectors. And that's why we must be careful. As things evolve, as men, we must be able to also clearly remain relevant in this evolving world. Let me move a bit faster just to do this. But just to say to you right now that all of you have examples of how things have changed. Or feel free to just send a chat in the chat room, how things have changed right now in the world that we live in. I will be honest with you right now. My wife and I, Estelle and I, have had honest conversations about life and money. We have agreed on the roles on how to go about money. And that's one of the things that must be talked about. And you'll see in my next slide that money problems or the economics of marriages is a major topic in the contemporary world. We discussed about who does what. The roles are clear. One of the things I tell people is that my wife actually pays the school fees for our children. So all the men always go with their mouth open when I say that. They say, but why? But you're the man. But I say, no, we've agreed that my wife, because she's organized, she saves pretty well, she's more focused. I have a very extroverted character, and somehow money comes to me and disappears faster than I think. And we agreed that my wife handles school fees. So my wife pays school fees. That's the contemporary world I'm living in right now. And I'm extremely happy. In fact, when the pay slips come for school fees, I gladly pass them to my wife, and she doesn't complain. Am I less of a husband? No. What we have agreed that I will handle all the investments. I will handle all the other bigger bills. I handle the car replacements. I handle the asset replacements. I handle the investments. But she pays the school fees. That was something that men only did before. Even today, it is unheard of that a woman would be the one covering the school fees while you sat back. I gladly pass the pay slips to her because we have agreed and distributed our roles in the house. I don't think it works for every marriage, but it works for me. And I think we must be adaptive to the changing world. Let me just say this right now. One of the challenges in modern marriages that I wanted to speak of right now, and I didn't want to lay them all here because then you kind of begin to read them before we talk about them, but I thought, let me just lay them there. Feel free to just send in the chat room anything that you're thinking we've missed out here. There are major challenges in modern marriages right now. And when I say modern marriages, I really mean marriages in a modern world. So that has to be clear. I think I'm seeing a couple of friends there, and Stephen, it reminds me of Kameza money. So please, whatever you do, and you'll see at the end, it must be part of the economics of marriage. There's a whole topic on Kameza that we need to handle another time. But one of the challenges that is in a modern marriage right now is the lack or just poor communication. I don't think couples are happy or willing to have difficult conversations anymore. There's either a poor lack or just a complete lack of communication right now, a complete breakdown. And you realize that most of the issues that we have today are really that we are distracted. We're on social media more than we are communicating. We're away looking for money more than we can go home and communicate. So there's less time to communicate because the cares of life have simply flooded our lives. We're looking for money. Maybe the husbands are looking for Kameza, bless their souls, but we're not communicating enough. And that's something that I can tell you is a work in progress for me. And I think every marriage topic or discussion, I don't think the word communication would ever be blanked out. I think if we solved communication, would possibly be halfway there as husbands in this modern marriage. But we must make time. The phones must go off. The TV must go off. Soccer, that one is a hot topic. But there's a time to switch off that TV and talk to your wife. There are days I get home and Estella just wants to talk. And I can tell that I better switch off and listen. Or I better pause that TV and listen, or rather switch off the TV and listen, because she has so much to talk about at the end of the day that I need to make time and listen. But are we communicating these days? Are we having conversations? So I'm no expert again, I must say, but I think this is a major challenge. People are just not talking about the issues in their marriages. And therefore, many issues are going under wraps. It's like having problems, wrapping them in a carpet and throwing them into the ceiling. And then 20 years later, you have lots of wrapped up issues in the ceiling that you've never dealt with. And you've got to come back and handle them. Imagine that issue. But imagine if you dealt with the issues on a frequent basis. And we'll talk about that in the solutions. Infidelity, I think, is a major issue. I think we cannot spell this out more. I think I would suspect there's more infidelity now in the modern world than there was previously. Today, with one click of a mouse and a click on your phone with social media, you can just literally open up a Pandora box you can't close with either your ex-girlfriend or with somebody. I mean, it can be that quick and that easy. And therefore, infidelity is major. What about the economics of marriage? Economics of marriage. Money matters. Let's talk about money matters. I think money issues, if there are three things that I would talk about today that are disrupting marriages today, in my perspective, are basically communication, sex, and money. If you had to summarize this page, it will be literally communication, sex, and money. And therefore, money is a major topic. I think we need to have a money talk also, in the conference one of these days. Because I think just talking about money and how to deal with money in marriage is a hot topic, but it's a major challenge. And many people have simply parted ways because of money. So how you manage money, we'll talk about that in the next slide. Social media, I think I don't even have to belabor this one. Everybody knows that they are either dealing with the effects of social media. I can tell you 90% of the people on this call now are addicted to social media. We keep blaming our children of being addicted, but we ourselves are addicted. I can tell you that many of you, the first thing you look at in the morning is not your Bible. It is not that strategy document. It is your phone and it is social media. That's the last thing you also look at before you sleep. So, and that's, I'm a real culprit of social media, management. And therefore we need to manage social media. It's a real challenge. These are things that we are looking at every single day. I mean, there are some apps that you go to and man, the kind of things that you're seeing that have become normal now, even for a married man, you are swung off at that moment. And, the men who are on this call know that, everything starts with the mind. And we are constantly in a battle of keeping our mind straight. But one little browse can really get you off in a day. And, men know what I'm talking about right now. And I'm sure now that affects women also. And social media is not just a men's problem. It's actually across the board. What about different value systems? Different value systems. I mean, we all have different value systems right now. And trying to get those value systems aligned has become, a major issue. And we must be able to find a compromise in our value system. What about stress? I think there's more stress and depression now than ever before. There's just so much pressure around us. There seems to be, a lot of pressure mounted, especially on husbands. I don't know about the husbands who are here, but I usually tell my wife quietly that there are nights where she goes to sleep, all the kids are sleeping, and I am seated on a chair in sitting room and wondering about tomorrow. I don't know how many husbands, get that once in a while. And feel free, by the way, to send me a hands up or emoji or something on the chat group, because these are main issues. We're stressed. There is more stress now than ever before. I think there is a sense that you must achieve more. There's a sense that you must live in a particular neighborhood. There's a sense that you must drive a particular car. There's peer pressure, literally, and we are stressed by peer pressure. We always talk about this with our teenagers, but actually, even men and wives and husbands are actually undergoing stress from peer pressure. So these are discussion points. We're really stressed by the surroundings that we live in right now. And there's a definition about wealthy and prosperity. And I think that discussion must be had. Is money the definition of wealth? But if I can pay my bills and I can sleep at night, am I wealthy? I know that's a hot topic, right? And I respect money because money is an enabler. But I think if money becomes everything for us, then we have lost the fundamentals. And we're totally stressed as husbands, literally on a daily basis. We're looking for more and more and more. And sometimes all our people want is actually intimacy and time, as we shall see. So time is cheaper, but we're looking for more money. And we'll talk about that along the way. So a lack of intimacy. This is a bit of a hot topic also, but for the married, and I'm hoping there are no children on this chat. So I'll keep it on PG mode. But there's just a lack of intimacy. And I'm talking about sex. I'm talking about, the bedroom matters. There are couples who simply, this is another hot topic. We need a conference topic on this one. But there's a lack of intimacy, complete lack of intimacy. People go weeks and months, and it's become a normal thing in the contemporary marriages now. Contemporary marriage, completely. There's a lack of excitement about the bedroom. There's a lack of excitement about intimacy. The wives, think that we've taken them for granted because we have simply not taken time as husbands to learn more about this area that is critical for our marriages. We do things the same way, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. We simply have the same routines, we're the same old guys. She can almost tell what you're going to do right there when you propose to do it. And I think we need to be more innovative, and I would dwell on this. I'm sure there are better experts than me on this one. But the lack of intimacy. And, our sexual intimacy has gone down completely in our marriages today because we're busy, we're stressed. But there are many factors that affect intimacy right now. There are many factors that are really, really affecting our intimacy. Even financial. When you're broke, sometimes as men, and I'm talking to husbands right now, the bedroom suffers. When you're struggling with money, the bedroom suffers. Do our wives know those things? Maybe, maybe not. But if a man is stressed, many things suffer, even including the abilities in that bedroom and intimacy. And therefore, we really need to sort of watch for that. Let me just go also to trauma or grief. That was a typo there. I think there are many people who are going through grief and trauma. And having lost a brother years before, having lost a father, I know what grief can do. Grief can actually affect a marriage. And this is an area that needs concerted discussion. Some spouses have not understood how to deal with grief and trauma. I don't think this has changed from the traditional marriages before, but more and more we see, imagine a marriage during COVID where people lost a father and a mother, where people lost, 4 family members in one time. How does your marriage cope in a pandemic with your spouse losing people and traumatized in grief? How does that work? And I think that's an area that we need to talk about even more. Disrespecting boundaries. I think we'll talk about that a bit deeper also on the next slide. And I'm trying to sort of compress it to allow our discussion points. But boundaries have been crossed. I think there's less respect these days. There's less understanding of our spouses these days sometimes. And my wife also reminded me about boundaries. How we even, as married people, how do we manage our intimacy with the opposite sex? The comfort levels we have with the opposite sex. Are we crossing some boundaries? And it's a common thing, especially for us who are introverted. You find it very easy for us to sort of just easily cross the line, because you're comfortable with the opposite sex, but now that has to be worked out. So there are boundaries that have to be respected. An interesting one is jealousy. I don't think we talk about this very often, but there's a lot of jealousy now in marriages. You can't believe it. The wives are doing well, the husband is jealous. The husband is doing well, the wife is jealous. And we are forgetting that these are our things. They're not your things. It's not my car or your car. These are our things. But it's actually actual jealousy. You find that a wife trying to pull down a husband who is doing well, or a husband pulling down a wife who is progressing heavily. You try to impair them. You talk wrongly around them before your in-laws. You're literally trying to bring them down. And I know this is interesting, but jealousy is an interesting one, you know. And we must be able to handle these issues now, especially in the contemporary world where the wives are prospering, the wives are becoming CEOs, the wives can afford a couple of things, and that impacts. But the more we come together and agree that this is our thing, if she is shining, I'm shining. Happy wife, happy life. We would actually all be happy if she's shining. So let's not, you know, pull our people down. What about boredom? I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there are many couples who are bored these days. Simply bored. Simply bored. And I'll talk about this in the next slide, but they're just bored in their marriage. And this boredom kicks in, especially almost 5 to 6 years into your marriage. So there are these beginning years where you're excited, you're opening doors. How many husbands still open doors? Are there husbands on the chat who still open doors for their wives? You know, please keep doing that if you can. I forget to do that often, so I'm a culprit. How many of you pull chairs? How many of you pull chairs at the dinner time for your wives? I also am a culprit many times. I do that when we're going out, but at home, it's just my wife and, well, there's your seat. Thank you for serving, you know. But because of the routine, there's a lot of boredom in marriages today. And we'll talk about some quick solutions that I think we can sort of implore and put in there. But there's a lot of boredom in our marriages today. Then different life stages, you know, we seem to be incompatible in many ways sometimes. You know, different education background, different education levels. You know, either one is grieving and one is not. You know, all sorts of differences that come in, and we've got to try to be compatible. And that keeps being a challenge in a modern world. Let me just go quicker because I can see the time. These are some of the solutions to some of those things that I mentioned right now. And these are just my thoughts. I really want to make time and hear from you guys what you think about the problems and what you think about the possible solutions. And I'll be ending very soon. Number one, we talked about communication. Husbands, let me say this to you, and for some of you, you've been married longer than me, but for communication, that C is for communication, the problems that we had right now. So keep referencing that in a way. Start as a husband, we've got to start by being a good listener and encourage our spouses to express themselves. I think many husbands are literally gagging their wives. You find, I can tell by sitting on the conversation table with a spouse and a couple that their wives don't have the freedom to talk. Many wives can hardly talk. When she begins talking, the husband intercepts her. When she begins having a part of her story, he comes in again. He seems to tell the story better than her all the time. You know, wives no longer talk. They are intimidated. They are put down. They are downtrodden in many ways. And we're hardly listening. We are talking all the time. And like me, who's extroverted, I need to literally remind myself to be a good listener, because it's easy for us to just talk the whole day. And that's why I need to finish my slides and listen more. But basically, we need to be good listeners. And I think if all men went home and began to listen more, just listen more, you'd be amazed what these wives have to say. Listen more about financial decisions. You'll be amazed what they are discussing. Listen more about the risks you're about to take. You'll be amazed how your marriage gets better. So listen more and allow them to express themselves. I was really about, if you recall, was about infidelity. And we're saying if there's more honesty in our marriage now, this is a hard one, I must tell you. And this is something I know we would probably not feel free to talk about on this group. But everybody has had a challenge possibly in their marriage. Even our wives, if you had very honest conversation with them, they have also had crashes during their marriages, you know, during the marriage time with you. So if you're there thinking like you're the cowboy and you're Superman, even your wife probably has had a crush, but wasn't able to tell you. Now, of course, crush can be defined by many ways, but in the contemporary world, you know, our wives go to work. There are these young men who know what perfume, you know, they compliment them every day, and husbands are sleeping on the job. We don't compliment our wives. We don't take them out. We don't tell them how beautiful they look. And there's infidelity now that's happening. And it's both ways. But speaking to husbands here, we need to be honest. We need to rebuild trust in case infidelity has been lost along the way. We must be able to rebuild trust with time. And it takes time. Another thing I tell husbands sometimes, and I tell myself, is that, if there's a challenge or an emotional infidelity, or you're struggling in a direction, and this begins with social media, a bit of chit chat, and it's an area that couples don't want to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about this area because you're supposed to look like the Mr. Right guy. You're supposed to look like the wonderful wife who never has a challenge. But there's infidelity. It doesn't have to be physical. It could be emotional. But having those difficult discussions, having those honest discussions is a process, I'll tell you. Rebuilding trust takes time. Even from an emotional, crush, it takes time. I tell men that when you have overcome that, you need to have cold turkey. Now, cold turkey is a term people use when they simply, I think even the young people call it ghosting now. You must be willing to ghost and walk away, because you cannot be trying to sort out infidelity issues or emotional issues, and you're still chit-chatting on, with the person. So you must be able to walk away sometimes in a cold manner. And that's a bit of a cold solution, but I've seen that it works. It's hard to massage that discussion sometimes. So rebuilding trust takes time. I can't take too much time on that. I really hope that people will be able to share more, during our chat. Then there's the economics of money, or the economics of marriage. How many of you have gone away for a money date? How many of you have gone away for a date just talking about money? Because I can tell you, if you solve the money issue and the communication issue, in my view, you have solved a lot. We hardly sit down with my wife to budget these days. Why? We all have our roles. We all have our duties. We all have our clear things that we're going to do as a person in the marriage. We have agreed. So when the power goes off and we have a blackout at home, my wife, anywhere she is, even if I'm traveling, will comfortably say, Collin, there is no yaka. And it doesn't matter if I'm flying in another time zone, I need to fix the yaka because I committed to all the utility bills. Now, it may sound harsh. She has the money on her phone, but I committed. Just like I give her the pay slips, really smiling. I say, honey, school fees time, I pass them on to her and she pays the bills. I need to make sure the lights are on. So go on a money date, but budget together because it is our money. It is not her money or your money. It is our money. And every time you forget that it's our money, I think trouble starts. And this is it's a hard topic, but I think in my 17 years, I have slowly learned that you've got to sit down and agree that whatever you bring in is actually our money. And this is a hard thing for a contemporary husband. And I would like to hear from the husbands also on the money matters. But sit down, go away on a date. Very quickly, social media. We're just going to sort of speak on these points and just run off. Social media, set the guidelines. I have an app now. My phone dims at about 11 p.m. and then goes back on at about 6. Find some kind of guidelines that help you to just go off a bit, because I know my own challenges. I am on social media a lot. I work on social media. I work with my teams on social media. I receive news on social media. I'm following the politics on social media. I want to know what's happening on social media, but I'm also excited to just know what's going on. So we are addicted and spend so much time on social media, but set the guidelines and be open with your devices. Now, this is a tough one, husbands, but how many of you have given your wives the PIN code to your phones? And there's silence, right? And I expect some silence in the room because that's a hard one. It's a hard one. I mean, leaving my phone on the bed, going to the shower and feeling confident that my wife can go through my phone and I am still okay. Many husbands, their hearts are beating when their phones are left behind. Try forgetting your phone and go to work and imagine, the feeling that the many husbands have. But I think you must get to a point where you're open about your devices. And this may even go towards, your ATM cards. How many of your wives have the PIN codes to your ATM cards? as part of the openness. It's our money, isn't it? It's our money. My money is your money. So how is that going? I would like to hear. But it's important that we're open about this. Then the value systems. I think if you have different value systems, be honest and have honest conversations before taking any major drastic decisions. Before taking anything drastic, have a discussion, have an honest chat, listen to her, hear her out, and see what happens. And you'll be amazed at how your value systems begin to merge, and slowly you begin to create a new culture as a couple. But have those major discussions before the decisions. And let me go to stress, right? Please learn to journal, learn to say no, husbands. I think husbands, we are simply on the move every day. We say yes to everything. We are everywhere. We seem to just be the helper. We are volunteering for everything. We must learn to say no to some things. We must be able to journal. We must come home and just be dads and be husbands sometimes, many times, as often as we can. So journaling is important. Track your things. Don't be stressed by conflicting. Today, imagine if I had a conflicting speaking engagement somewhere and I'm supposed to be an online church of Uganda. How was I supposed to do that? So journal yourself, use your calendar and have less stress, working out, being creative, reading more, and, getting outdoors for a walk, especially with your spouse, is a great way to distress. All right, what about intimacy and sex? Very quickly, share your sexual needs. This is a tough one, right? And I'm hoping that it's just a PG, discussion. But sharing your sexual needs and expectations. This is an interesting one. How often have you sat down with your wife and explained your sexual needs and expectations? I'm no sex expert. Please write that down if you can. Remember, I am not the expert, but I'm sharing my thoughts on this. How often husbands don't talk, but they're grumbling outside and saying, but my wife doesn't enjoy it. My wife is not excited about it. But have you shared your sexual needs and expectations? Have you explained some of the things that, you desire, for instance, So there's less communication even about sex. People are communicating about everything else, but less about their sexual needs and expectations. So share more, have honest conversations. How about having what's the word for it? How about having a follow-up session where you have a feedback, and say, but how'd that go? So this may sound funny, but, it's interesting for men. Have you ever asked your wife, how can I do this better? How can I be a better husband? And listen to the feedback that your wives give you. You'll be shocked by the honest conversations. You're right. So share your sexual needs and expectations. And I think allow the wives to also share theirs and listen carefully and learn together. Number T, I think. So T, if you recall, and I'll just go back just one slide. All right, was trauma or grief. All right. So many couples are going through grief and it's affecting their marriages. So praying together is critical. I've been through grief and I can tell you, if my wife wasn't praying with me, I was completely lost. Many people go into depression. There's suicide. There's all sorts of effects of grief and trauma. So pray together, but give each other space. Learn to give each other space. Have compassion and time. Make time, but don't be afraid to seek help. If you see your wife or your spouse really going through difficult, traumatic times. I think I know a couple, for instance, who grief has ripped their marriage apart. He has failed to come to terms with the loss. The wife doesn't know what to do, and their marriage is going under. So seek help where you can. Quickly, B, don't be controlling and allow expressing of views, basically. And this was around the boundaries, all right? So don't be too controlling. Allow the expression of views. J, we talked about again, and this again is jealousy. Jealousy must be addressed head on and seek professional help if you must get help, since there must be deeper emotional conditions at play. Many times, whenever there is constant extreme jealousy in a couple, and so this is a word we hardly talk about in marriage counseling or talking about it together, but there's actually jealousy in couples many times. But address this thing head on and talk about it, or get some help. Because the person may actually have deep-rooted emotional issues that they're dealing with in their childhood, and they have carried those all into your marriage. B, again, that was boredom, okay? If there's boredom, share your frustrations about your marriage and devise some fun. I think we have bored marriages because we're not being innovative. Go away a bit. Take your wife away somewhere. Go for a regular date night. Try to read, watch a movie together. Go away and take a walk together. Do a new hobby together, or take up a new hobby together, basically. But find a way of reinventing yourselves to be able to downplay that frustration. But lastly, I think, and as I begin to close right now, your different life stages, again, reconnect. It is important to make your relationship a priority. I tell everybody I can, whenever I can. I picked Friday as a date night, with my wife, and I try, but many times I fail. But I tried. It's actually in my phone. I put date night with my wife, with her name, and it flashes up on Friday, reminding me to try to take her out, because I realized the boredom that was coming with 17 years of marriage, the disconnection, different life stages. We need to be able to reconnect. So regular dates. My question to the husbands here is, how often do you go on dates? How often do you actually go out on dates together? And, I can see my time has really gone. So my last slide, my summary to the husbands, and I really apologize for my time management. Slow down, make quality time. I think if I had to summarize anything here, I'll tell the husbands here, please slow down. I think we are really on a roller coaster, and I find myself on the same. I am up and down. I am everywhere. I'm trying to make everything work out and meet. But maybe our husbands are only saying, slow down. The number one, I want to say this to you, and the wives that are here right now could possibly advise, but the number one love language for our wives and our women is quality time. Is their number one love language. If you pick 10 women, 8 of them will tell you that their love language is quality time. Others will tell you gifts. Others will be words of affirmation, but rarely will you find any other love language than quality time. So women simply want time. I mean, they want gifts, okay? And they will see here that I'm saying that wives want presents for sure. They want our gifts and presents, but they need our presence even more. And I don't know if the wives can attest to that, but they need our presence a little more. I don't know, husbands, if you get that phone call at 5 p.m. where your wives call you about the supermarket. Oftentimes I've discovered that my wife is not calling me about the supermarket. She just wants me to come home. She's only saying, come home. What time are you coming home? There's that phone call at about 5:30 that comes around that says, honey, where are you right now? When you're coming home, you hear that? When you're coming home, please pass by the supermarket and pick this up for us. She's simply saying, come home. She wants quality time. And I think that's something we must talk about. But quality time repairs prayer life. So if you've been wondering how your prayer life will come, make the time. Quality time improves communication. So make quality time. Quality time improves sex. Obviously, you cannot have sex if you're a busy man. Intimacy will improve. Parenting will improve if you have quality time. So if I had a summary for you, I would say slow down and make quality time. Lastly, gentlemen, I was advised by a friend who's on the call here. She told me, don't forget to say, Kameza money is important. So gentlemen, the wives are pretty clear about Kameza, but I think primarily they want quality time. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to just close by saying, husbands, don't be anxious for nothing, the Bible says, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, the Bible says. So my prayer is that the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and mind, even in this contemporary world. God bless you, and over to you, moderator. Apologies for my very, very lengthy presentation. Over to you.
Well done, Ndugu Collin. Can we all please send those claps? Thank you, Bira, Evelyn, and everyone else. The claps and flowers and gold medals are all due in at this time. Thank you so much. As you began, Ndugu Collin, you said tackling this in the few moments we gave you is a tall order, and you proposed the conference and you mentioned it in other times, and I'm sure during the announcements we are going to be given by Digital Papa or Digital Mama or whoever is in charge tonight. They will give us the dates for the conference that's coming up. Thank you so much, Ndugu Collin, for handling this topic so well. The chat has been flooded with messages. People are not having dinner unless the chair is pulled for them. And yeah, others are going to be carried, and others are breaking the rules of Lent, but it's all for happy lives, happy wives, happy marriages in this contemporary world. A few questions, and people can, I think, post comments. The chat is flowing with comments and I think appreciation. But Ndugu Collin, one question I have on board already, I'll give you three, and then as you're responding to those, we'll take in others. Many appreciations to you, Ndugu Collin. The first is an observation in the church and outside the church, and I know we have various people represented here, but sometimes marriages get challenged with childlessness, and it's becoming a common phenomenon even in the church today. Wonderful couples, but children are not yet in the picture. It's a given or expectation, but doesn't come the normal way. How would you encourage that person? Because it affects intimacy, it affects the marriage with the pressure from other relatives. But secondly, I know we've had a few brothers from SU and a few sisters from, sorry, a few sisters from SU and a few brothers from BU. But you mentioned very well at the beginning that, you know, today marriage has, the times have changed. Marriage hasn't changed, but times have changed. And we see that women are more the breadwinners all over the world, States, Europe, Africa, Asia, maybe. So, and yet the Irish have a saying, a man should not be afraid to marry up. How would you encourage the men getting into marriage, the men who are married, who have, you know, women who are more empowered or, you know, more financially, socially, and emotionally ahead, or even academically ahead? How would you encourage those men? Maybe you could respond to those two as others come as we prepare to wind up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Alan. Reverend Alan, I think you mentioned the first one around childlessness and infertility. I mean, this is a very tough topic, but we've had moments, my wife and I, to, you know, to sort of talk to a few people sometimes, not from a professional perspective, but because we've been open, for instance, about the challenge that we've had as a couple. So every time people see your big family, they wonder, oh, but everything is all rosy and well. We actually had, and this is something, you know, we're comfortable to share, because I think less people are talking about these things these days. But we had almost 4 miscarriages in our time. And, you know, miscarriages are extremely rampant these days in the contemporary world. But apart from miscarriages, just infertility is actually also a major one. And we've been happy to talk, because my wife is a doctor, and being a woman that's also experienced some of these challenges, it's been a bit easier for her to have those conversations. I've also had time to talk to 1 or 2 husbands who are going through that, because it can be a major killer for marriages these days. And oftentimes you don't choose this infertility. It's not something in your making. And therefore there's a lot of grace required in a marriage when this is happening. But oftentimes also, you simply need to seek help. We discovered many times that whenever we sought help, we actually got help. And as a young couple, I've seen many couples who have gotten 2 miscarriages and they have given up on childbearing completely. Others have simply not conceived. And this is a clear and present issue in contemporary marriages. But seek help. There's actually professional help for this. There are all sorts of medical remedies today, but I know that sometimes we're extremely spiritual, and I'm being careful how I say this here because I know that some people don't believe in any intervention, when it comes to fertility. But there are many, medical remedies, and I'll be happy to share on this another time. But there are remedies that really would help struggling couples, and couples have been blessed with children. They simply needed help, simply needed to understand what to do, and they actually got help. And so sometimes all you need to do is seek help. Reach out, raise your hand, and actually seek the help. But nothing discounts the power of prayer. I think we, in our lives, at least, we saw what prayer was doing. It didn't matter if science needed to be employed or medical intervention, there was a need for lots of prayer. And so I can't discount the need for prayer, but I can't discount the need for seeking help. So in my short answer to that complicated and wide topic is we must raise our hands and seek help. Many couples are struggling alone. They're quiet. They can't. It's a taboo to talk about the challenges that we're having, especially miscarriages. Many couples hardly talk about them. Even their own parents and brothers and sisters don't even know they're going through that. So less and less couples are seeking out for help. And so there's trouble in marriages. So seek help. There's actually help and remedy. People have gone through what you're going through, I think is my summary. So seek help. My other answer is, I think women are breadwinners. I don't have the big answer for this one, and I'm happy for anybody to chime in on this one. And it is true, women are becoming breadwinners today. Let me give you another revelation that I'm not afraid of right now. My wife has a great job, and she actually, on a month-to-month basis, ever since I moved back 2 years ago from my job, where I was, she actually, on a net-to-net basis, earns more than I do. So again, women are empowered, but women, and I'm happy for her because I sit through her, I work with her through her interviews. I want to see her progress. So I am confident in my skin, knowing that my wife actually, from a net to net, if you look at the basics, she actually earns more than I do right now in the last 2 years. I've been earning more than she's been doing for the last 15 years. But ever since I got back to a government job, she actually earns more than me. And am I less of a man right now? No. Am I intimidated? No. I still run a couple of other things, businesses and things that help to complement and actually cover the gaps. But I think my point to the husbands is there's going to be a need for a lot of humility in our marriages because our wives are emancipated. Our wives are blessed. They are educated now. Imagine if we run away from our wives just because they have been empowered. So I think it's important that we have humility in our marriages. But I would like to speak to the young people who are getting married. I think it's important that even as husbands, don't lose our place as the breadwinners or unless circumstances, impose us there. But if there's any way we can stay, the providers, stay the priests and the providers and not lose those basic titles that we were given, I think that keeps a man in his place. Many men are struggling with their egos, struggling with their self-esteem because they can't provide as much as their wives are providing. And it's a very complex discussion that I don't think we can fully complete here. And I'm happy to have somebody else chime in to give their view. But I think my prayer is for humility in a marriage, especially when there's a circumstance where you're not earning as much as your wife. But I want to tell every young man getting married, it's important that you marry when you've your income together. I think marrying someone's daughter without your economics together, I think is a red. Be a provider. Take your place from the beginning and handle it. If along the way something happens and your wife, hallelujah, is promoted many times and she gets a better role, then it's our money anyway. It's still our money. Take it with strides, but don't lose your place as the head of the home. Keep your humility, but keep your place and self-esteem. And it's a hard topic, I must say, and I'd really be happy if somebody else came in. But I think keep our humility and support our wives, whatever they are in this situation. I think that's the basic I can say, Reverend Adam, for now.
Thank you so much, Ndugu Collin. Very well said. And well tackled, both of them. Those are all big issues, but thank you for the snippets that you've given. and Reverend Professor John will be talking more about the conference. And Collin, I'm sure you'll be given the date because you've already won one of the slots for keynote addresses. So, my friends, we need to come to a close, but allow me to make these two comments, which I think were given by CEO Lydia. We're living in challenging times, but I'm paraphrasing. She says, even though times are challenging for men, the key thing is, appreciate your wife and her support, and the rest will be superb. I like that promise that's made on behalf of the ladies that, appreciate your wife, gentlemen, appreciate her support, and the rest, I've put it in quotes because you know what the rest is, will be superb. And, she, I think, also added that when one spouse, has more money than the other, or, there are challenges, the one who has the money needs to treat the other in a way to promote oneness. And I think that's just underscoring the quality and attitude of humility that you've already addressed, Ndugu Collin. And so, Ndugu Collin, you also addressed the issue of, devising fun. Gentlemen, this might be a tall order for us, but Google is our friend. We can get fun ideas of how to make our homes, our bedrooms, our car journeys, or times with our wives more fun. And interestingly, 20 years ago, one of our counselors told us that women or wives and children spell love as T-I-M-E, which spells time. And Collin, you've well said that, as much as our wives love presents, they need, with capital letters and bold, need our presence more. And so, thank you so much. At this time, I would like to invite our dear digital papa to